The Army Black Knights were Commander-in-Chief trophy winners last year after beating both Air Force and Navy, and now they look to defend that title in 2024, and they also enter new stomping grounds. No longer is Jeff Monken's group an FBS independent. They are part of the American Athletic Conference. Can Army defend their Commander-in-Chief trophy and possibly contend for an AAC title? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel, and a welcome back to Prediction Season. It's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams, and it means I do your favorite team. You got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. Happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans watching this. Of course, recording and uploading this on Independence Day as to why we are going through the Armed Forces Academy teams today. So we start out with Army. And thank you for taking time out of your celebratory festivities to talk some college football with me. Again, guys, you can support the channel in many different ways. Watching this video is a huge one and helps support my channel in more ways you can even imagine. But you can watch my other videos. Again, subscribe, ring the bell, like, comment, share, and anything else you do to interact with the channel helps to support what I do here on YouTube. Guys, with all that out of the way, we're going to talk about Jeff Monken's group first. They're going to look to defend their Commander-in-Chief trophy in 2024. How do we talk about teams this year? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the team's defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the team's schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, dear viewer, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So I'll waste no more time. Let's get into talking about the Army Black Knights in 2024. Now, again, with these Armed Forces Academies, they run a very different offense. They run a triple option style offense with slot backs and wing bones and everything like that. So I'm going to kind of group all of them into the running back category, but just know that there are a lot of different positions that they can play. But you have to start with the most important position on the field. That's the quarterback position, and Army loses two of them from last season. They do lose Champ Harris and Larry Robinson. Those were kind of two backups to this role, although Champ Harris did get some substantial playing time, 260 yards passing for him last season, but didn't throw a touchdown and threw 4 picks. Not a great stat line, but again, Army not known for their passing. Champ Harris, though, he did some fairly solid things rushing the football. I mean, did get sacked quite a bit last year, and sack yardage does include this, but 21 carries last year, did have 1 touchdown in there as well. Larry Robinson had 80 yards rushing and a touchdown last year. But again, neither of them were the primary quarterback last year. That was Bryson Daly, and he returns to this team in 2024. Threw 120 passes last year, completed exactly half of them for 913 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 6 picks. And then on the ground was this team's leading rusher. 901 yards and 7 touchdowns on 215 carries. Again, that triple option style offense utilizes the quarterback's running game a lot, and Bryson Daly was very good at that last year. He'll be backed up by Zach Mundell and Dwayne Coleman, but it is the Daily Show here in 2024 for Army yet again. When you talk about this group of running backs, halfbacks, slot backs, wing backs, whatever you want to refer to them as, again, they can play a lot of different positions. They are going to be losing Markel Johnson. Now, there is the asterisk because I couldn't really find any information on how he left, because I believe he was a junior last year, but he's not on the spring roster. He's not on the R-Lads depth chart. So anyone that is around the Army program, if you could tell me how he leaves, that would be greatly appreciated. But he had 83 yards rushing last year, and you do lose 2 really solid backs again due to graduation, which is how most guys leave through the Armed Forces programs. Jacoby Buchanan is gone. He was a very talented back, 169 yards and 3 touchdowns on 51 carries for him last season. And then Tyson Riley was a pretty good back with this team as well, over 100 yards rushing for him last season. Okay, again, the main focal point of this offense, besides that quarterback position, will be the group of halfbacks that this team does have. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Kanye Uda, the leading rusher among the halfbacks last year, had 524 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown on 99 carries last year. Very talented running back. He comes back. Hayden Reed, Tyrell Robinson, Miles Stewart, Jake Rendina, and Gerald Dixon are also all back in this room, and you could list a ton more names. I mean, there were, just looking at here, 15 or so guys that had at least 1 carry for the Army Black Knights last season. And again, those 6 guys are just the start. Those 6 guys probably will get the most playing time, but you do have some other talented names that are back there in that room as well. If you are an Army fan, please leave some of them in the comment section below. However, wide receivers do get some fairly solid playing time with this Army program. They do throw the football fairly often. 164 pass attempts last season. You saw Bryson Daly threw 120 of them last year. He'll get back to throwing the football this year, but he'll have to do it without a couple of his more talented targets, as Ajuan Marshall has graduated. He is no longer with the program. Had times where he was a very talented wide receiver for this team, 83 yards receiving for him last year. But the leading receiver is gone through the transfer portal, and not something you can say with this team often, but Isaiah Alston is gone. He had only 9 catches, but 266 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the leading receiver for this team, and he is off to the Iowa State Cyclones to be utilized in a much more pass-heavy offense, obviously, than what you're going to see here with Army. So, talking about the wide receivers that they do have, well, Noah Short is back. Casey Reynolds is back. Those 2 guys had over 200 yards receiving last year. Toby Olawola, and I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize, and Liam Fortner all come back. And while these Armed Forces Academy teams don't really utilize a whole lot of underclassmen, you do get Brian Ray coming in as I believe a 3-star freshman that could play some big minutes. Again, who knows how much he's going to get utilized, though. Tight end room, you do lose Josh Ligenfelter to the NFL. But you do get some tight ends back in David Corson, Will Montesey, and Seth Reese in your offensive line. Again, usually with these Armed Forces Academies, you get a ton of offensive linemen leaving, and that is the case here. A ton of offensive linemen are graduating. Finu Kane, Philip Howicks, and I probably butchered that last name, I apologize. Barzak, Buckingham, and Lombardi are all offensive linemen that leave. Offensive linemen that come back: David Hoyt, Jordan Law, Lucas Scott, Will Jeffcoat, Brady Small, Matthew Adogi, and I butchered that last name. I definitely know it. If I didn't, though, hey, let me know. Tanner Bivens and Ned Brady all return to this offensive line room. Talking about the Army offense here in 2024. Again, it'll be led by Bryson Daly. Very, very solid the quarterback here. In fact, for the system that Army likes to run, he's a very good quarterback. He had 900 rush yards last year, as I said earlier. He could see 1,000 in 2024. He's a fairly solid passing quarterback too. And while, again, the touchdown to interception number is not really something that you look for with a program like this, it definitely can improve. It can get better, as can that completion percentage. But Bryson Daly is going to lead this offense and do some good things. They have a very talented room of wingbacks and slot backs, and you have a good offensive line here in 2024. I think Jeff Monken's group offensively will be pretty solid in 2024. When you go over to talk about the defensive side of the football, it hasn't been as good as some of the Army defenses that we have seen in seasons past, particularly up front. It allowed 176 rushing yards per game last season. Now, the secondary, yes, that was pretty good, but up front, they weren't as good as they normally are, and you lose a lot of talented guys up front. Austin Hill, Nathaniel Smith, and Chris Frey are all gone off this defensive line due to graduation. And then in your linebacker room, well, you lose 2 guys that were huge pieces to this defense last year. They were 2 of your top 5 tacklers from the linebacker room, Leo Lowen and Jimmy Ciarlo, and I probably butchered that last name as well, so I apologize. They are both gone. Lowen led the team with 84 tackles and 3 sacks. Ciarlo, 55 tackles, 3 sacks for him as well. The 3 sacks, by the way, tied for this team lead. You also do have a guy leaving through the portal in Tanu Latuli. Jackson Powell has gone to the graduation, and what do you know? He was the other guy right up there with Lowen and Ciarlo, tied for the team lead in sacks. You also do lose Spencer Jones and Camden O'Gara as well. So again, a ton of talent leaving this defensive front 7, but when you take a look at what comes back, I mean, they still do have a lot of solid pieces here. Kyle Lewis is back, and he was a pretty big piece of the defensive line last year, had 28 tackles. Jack Latour, Trey Sophia, Tyler Rafferty, Dre Miller, Connor Winokur, and DeShantez Gray, among many other names you could mention, that will make for a pretty solid defensive line here this season. I have to think it will improve for Army in 2024, but again, we will see. Linebacker room, Caleb Fortner comes back. He was the 2nd leading tackler last year, and that's a huge get back. He'll be one of, if not the best defensive player on this team in 2024. 66 tackles, 2.5 sacks for him. Brett Garena, Eric Ford, Andon Thomas, and Elo Madozi, as well as, again, who knows how much these freshmen are going to play, especially in an Armed Force academy system, but Marley Alapati and Bryson Banks are 2 3-star freshmen that come into this program. Who knows, could see some pretty solid playing time in 2024. Cornerback room and safety room. Your defensive backs overall do lose some guys due to graduation. Jabari Moore, Cameron Jones, and Bo Nicholas Paul are gone from the cornerback room. Bo Nicholas Paul, probably the biggest one of those. 32 tackles, 2 passes defended, and 3 interceptions last season. That 3 interceptions tied for the team lead with a guy that's going to be leaving out of the safety room due to graduation. That is Quindrellin Hammonds. 4 passes defended, 3 interceptions, 2.5 sacks, and was the team's 3rd leading tackler with 64 tackles. So you do lose some really solid names out of that defensive back room. By the way, Jabari Moore did lead this team in passes defended with 6 of them last season. And so you do get some solid talent leaving out of that defensive back room. But what do? Well, you just take a look at what you got. Again, these Armed Forces Academies, I don't believe I've said this in this video yet, they don't really utilize the transfer portal as much as other programs around the country. They kind of just, again, utilize what they have. So what they have in the cornerback room is Damon Washington, Donovan Platt, and Justin Weaver. All of those guys are going to be coming back, and none of them, to my knowledge, got super huge playing time last season. Washington probably the most of them with only 3 tackles last year. But again, Platt had 5 tackles last year. So that beats out Washington. But the safety room does have some really nice returning talent, especially from what they showed us 1 year ago. I will butcher this last name as well, so I apologize. Max DiDomenico is back. He had 52 tackles, 1 pass defended, and 2 interceptions for the team last year. Casey Larkin, Aaron Bibbins, Chance Keith, Tommy Zitiello, and Hamilton Baker. And then again, a 3-star freshman in Jalen Jones coming in that could play big minutes. And kickers are people too. We have to show them some love. 2 place kickers are gone through this, They have graduated from the Army Academy. Quinn Maretsky and Cole Talley are both gone. However, you do get your punter back, which with these Armed Forces teams does matter a lot. So Alan Cooper is back, and then your 2 kickers will be Anderson Britton and Charlie Barnett. That might very well split the kicking duty. So overall, this defense, look, you're looking for that defensive line to improve from last season, and overall, we'll see what the secondary does. It's hard to imagine it would be as talented as it was last year because you just lost a lot of very good pieces. Moore, Nicholas Paul, Jones, Hammonds, those are all major contributors to the secondary from a season ago. However, again, you do get Domenico back. You do have some other solid pieces in the safety room. The cornerback room, we'll kind of see what it's made of here in 2024. But nonetheless, if we know Jeff Monken and we know the Army Black Knights, they'll have an aggressive and really good defense here in 2024. As we take a look at the Army schedule again, I'll say it, they enter the American Athletic Conference. No longer are they an FBS independent, so their schedule looks like this. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics. Guys, that's that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think Army's going to win fairly easily, while any game in yellow is going to be a close competitive game, but I still think the Black Knights are going to be able to pull it out, and any game in red is, in fact, a loss. I think they are going to start out with the win against Lehigh, so an FCS level program to open up the season for Army, and it should sort of be a nice test to get guys acclimated that didn't get much playing time last year, because again, with these Armed Forces Academy teams, you see a lot of seniors gone and a lot of pieces, much like this cornerback room for Army, that are going to be completely new and just look completely different. So it's a nice little game here to just sort of get everything under wraps, and then you dive right on into your American Athletic schedule with the FAU Owls. And I'm sorry to say, Black Knight fans, but I do think you end up dropping this game. I think FAU, not FIU, I almost said FIU. FAU is going to be a pretty talented team here in 2024. I mean, you get Tom Herman coming back as your head coach. We know what he can do with a group of 5 program. He's done it many a times before. He's a very, very talented head coach, and he's got some great weapons coming in here. Some really good wide receiver transfers come in. Cam Fancher transfers in to take over the quarterback position after Casey Thompson tore his ACL last year, and just inconsistencies to the quarterback position last year. FAU's got a lot of talent coming in on defense, and overall, Tom Herman, I think we'll see a nice jump with this Owls program from year 1 to year 2, and I think the Owls will be right back towards the top of the American Athletic. They will be a hard team to beat this year, especially going on the road here. I just think FAU is going to be able to overpower this Army defense that may still be trying to figure a couple of things out. But again, because of the Army-Navy game, because there's an extra week, there's an extra weekend this year, a lot of bye weeks coming here for Army and both Navy, which we'll get to later today. But Army, their first bye week comes here after week 2, and they get to go right back home and play the Rice Owls, which I think they're going to be able to win that game. Look, Rice has a lot of really solid talent on the team, but they lose a couple really dangerous pieces from last season, both offensively and defensively, either to the NFL, aka Luke McCaffrey, or through the transfer portal, which they do lose some pretty solid defensive pieces, especially in that defensive back room. I still think Rice is going to be good. They're still going to be competitive. They're still going to compete for a bowl game in 2024. But Army, what's the number one rule of college football? And all jokes aside to my Rice fans here, don't lose to food. I don't think Army does, and they win that game at home. My apologies. That joke will be made quite often when we talk about American athletic teams to all my Rice Owl fans out there. But they get to go from one owl to the other. Actually, they get to go their third straight owl that they play. So they play the FAU Owls, the Rice Owls, and the Temple Owls. How coincidental is that? They got to go on the road to play Temple. And look, I liked Temple last year. They didn't really show anything. And then I don't like that team as much here in 2024. They do lose E.J. Warner. He has gone to the transfer portal, I think, to Rice. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'll fact check that. Yeah, well, that is correct. So how about that? From one out to another, E.J. Warner is transferred over to Rice, which, again, part of the reason why Rice is still going to be a pretty solid football team here. I like E.J. Warner as a quarterback. He obviously is not with Temple. They lose a lot of other weapons, and I'm just not confident in the Temple Owls here in 2024. So Army beats 2 out of their 3 Owl teams, and they get to move on to some other nicknames here in conference play when they get to go on the road and play the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Now, this is an interesting game to me because this is a 50-50 game. I could see it going either way, but I think by this point, Army's defense is going to be up to task, and I think they're going to be really settled in, and I just think they're going to have a lot of things figured out, and this Army offense, especially when they get rolling, is really, really tough to game plan for, especially with how experienced they're going to be on that side of the ball this year, especially with Bryson Daly coming back to play quarterback for this team. And Tulsa, look, they got some solid pieces over there, but there are a lot of transfers leaving, a lot of transfers coming in. Interesting to see how that team all meshes. Tulsa's a very interesting team to try to figure out, but I think Army goes on the road and gets a pretty big win there against the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and they keep this win streak on moving when they play the UAB Blazers. The Blazers will be better than they were last season as a lot of solid talent returns and some really good pieces come in through the transfer portal. But again, I just don't see them being able to get through this Army defense. Yes, they had their struggles last season, but a lot of really good playmakers that could have helped them against this Army defense in 2024 left either to the NFL, through the transfer portal, whatever have you. And I think just because of that, I just think Army's going to be able to win that one, and why not? Let's make this win streak 5. They beat the East Carolina Pirates. Pretty bad season for them last year. They should be better in 2024, but they'll still have their struggles. And again, much like the UAB Blazers, they lost a lot of pieces that could have helped them against the Army Black Knights team, and I just think it's a better matchup for Army, so I do think that they win that game. But now the Defense of the Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief Trophy begins. After your second bye week of the year, you get to go on the road and play the you get to stay at home. My apologies, I was looking at one more slot ahead. You get a home game against the Air Force Falcons. Now, a winnable game, yes, but I do think you lose, and let me explain why. Look, Air Force lost pretty much everybody from last year. I believe only 5 starters returned to that team. Zach Larrier gone, John Lee Eldridge gone, Brad Roberts on the defensive side gone, along with many other weapons on that Air Force team. They all leave. But Troy Calhoun is one of the better head coaches in the Mountain West Conference. He always gets the best out of his players, and they have a much more passing style quarterback in John Boucher taking over that program. I've seen some really good things from him, and I still like Air Force in 2024. I think they go on the road and they get a huge win. Air Force, maybe a little spoiler here, they are my favorite for the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. I believe they beat Army here to hand the Black Knights just their second loss of 2024, but I think this starts a string of losses for Army. They just went on a 5-game win streak. I think they go on a 4-game losing streak here. I got them losing to the North Texas Mean Green, because even though there are a lot of pieces that leave that team, running back, wide receiver, and the quarterback Chandler Rogers, as well as some defensive pieces, North Texas is still going to be a feisty team. You got to watch out for them. They're always really, really competitive, and I think that they have enough offensive talent, especially to get through this Army defense. They'll be able to slow down this Army triple option threat. They'll be able to win that one. And then after your third bye week of the season, you just got 2 really, really hard games that I think are going to be hard for Army to win either one of them. I don't think they're beating Notre Dame. Yes, I know it is a neutral site game. It is in the Bronx. I get all of that. But Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are set up really well this year. Riley Leonard is coming in. The defense will be excellent, and then they lose to UTSA as well. Yes, Frank Harris is gone. Yes, some other really talented pieces leave, but Jeff Traylor is still there. He knows how to develop talent at an elite level. UTSA will still be good this season, and then it's the Army-Navy game. Washington, D.C. is the site here. It's FedEx Field. I know technically about 5 miles outside of Washington, D.C., but the Army-Navy game is here. Navy has dominated the 21st century, but Army has dominated as of late, and I think that continues. They won last year, and I believe if they win this year, it's a 3-game win streak for the Army Black Knights in America's game. Navy's going to be shifting to a little bit of a new look offense this year, and I think it's going to take some time to settle in. Army will take advantage of that, and they go 7-5 in their first year as a member of the American Athletic in 2024. Let me know what you guys think about the Black Knights in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. We'll move on to Air Force. Happy 4th of July. See you in the next video. Goodbye.